Hey everyone, welcome back with another session of geography. So we'll continue the same chapter, that is major relief features of the earth. Now in the previous session we have already discussed about that how different landforms with the advent of these agents like running water and wind, how they have influenced and given shape to different landforms, and these we know it as relief feature. And also we have discussed about the different forces of nature, that is endogenic and exogenic forces. Now the combined action of these endogenic and exogenic forces over millions of years has shaped the surface of the earth, and on the basis of elevation, slope and relief, the relief features have been categorized into three types, that is mountains, plains and plateaus. So today our topic of discussion, that will be mountains. Now guys, as we talk about these mountains, now what are these mountains? Now mountains are basically uplifted portions of the earth, now which rise steeply above the adjoining landscape, and they have steep slopes and peak. Alright, now if you see, landforms over 600 meter are classified as hills. This green picture, this is the hills. Now these hills are only 600 meter above the sea level. But on the other hand, if we see mountains, they are rising above 1000 meter above the sea level. So this is the basic difference between hills and mountains. Alright, now let's move on. Now here we'll discuss about the different forms of mountains. These are the different forms of mountains. We have mountain range, mountain chain, mountain system and cordillera. Alright, all these things, this comes under the different forms of mountains. Now, first one, that is mountain range. What is this? A linear system of mountains basically and hills. A linear system of mountains and hills with several peaks and valleys. Alright, a linear system of mountains and hills with several peaks and valleys. These are termed as the mountain range. Now, if you see, for example, the Himalayas in India, they have got ranges. Like the upper range is called Himadri, middle range is called Himachal, and the lower one called the Shivaliks. So these various ranges will be the linear ranges. Okay. The second we have, that is the mountain chain. Now several long and narrow parallel chain of mountains belonging to different periods. These are termed as the mountain chains. So they are long and narrow parallel chains of mountains. Now, it doesn't mean that those are belonging from the same period. These are belonging from the different periods. Maybe some like 50 million years old, some are around 20 or 30 million years old. Like they are like from different periods, but they are like long and narrow parallel chain of mountains. As we can see the picture here, this is the picture of Alps in Europe. So it comes under the mountain chain. All right. Next, that is mountain system. Now the mountain ranges of the same period, these are the different mountain ranges. These are of the same period, maybe around 50 million years ago or 30 million years ago. But these are separated by different valleys. These are separated by different valleys. Now if we see, like example, the Rocky Mountains that we have here, the Rocky Mountains in USA. They are separated by small valleys. Alright. And the last one we have, that is cordillera. Now this cordillera, this is basically a Spanish term which refers to a group or a system of several mountains. You can see the picture here. It's a group of several mountains. Now for example, the Western Cordillera, that is in USA. Okay. So these are the different forms of mountains. Now, based on the mode of formation, mountains are generally classified into following types. So what are the types? That is fold mountain, block mountains, volcanic mountains and residual mountains. These are the four types of mountains. Alright, now one by one we will discuss. Firstly, we have, that is fold mountains. Now, what are these fold mountains? Now, most of the prominent mountain ranges, suppose like the Himalayas or the Alps and the Andes, these comes up as fold mountains. Now all fold mountains, they have been formed due to the internal forces. Internal forces, that means the endogenic forces. Okay, these are acting on the top layers of the earth. You can see the picture here, like this is the formation of the fold mountains, the top, how the fold mountains are formed. Alright, so due to the endogenic or the internal forces on the top layers of the earth's surface. Okay, now when horizontal compressional forces push a layer of rocks from both the sides, they buckle under pressure and fold and rise over the surface. As you can see the picture here, how they are getting fold and they are rising over the surface. Now as a result, what happened? A series of arches and troughs are formed. Now arches, you can see the picture, that is the ulta U. Alright, so these arches are called anticlines, and the troughs, these are called the synclines. And these arches and troughs, these anticlines and synclines, they appear as wave-like folds. They appear as wave-like folds, as you can see in the picture here. So ups and downs are there. So these are called the anticlines and synclines, the wave-like folds. Okay. Now if we see for examples, now these fold mountains, they are basically categorized into two types. One is the old fold mountain, another is the young fold mountains. Okay. Now the Himalayas, the Alps, Andes, these are examples of the young fold mountains. Alright, so these young fold mountains is basically around 20 or 30 million years old. Okay, and they have been formed in the recent geographical past, you can call it. And if you see the old fold mountains, suppose the Aravalli range that we have in India, the Urals, the Tian Shan and the Appalachians, these are all the examples of the old fold mountains. Okay, and these are around 50 to 100 years old, million years old. Okay, 50 to 100 million years old. Now, the peaks of these old fold mountains, they have been eroded. They have been eroded like with the agents like wind, water, they have been eroded. And the heights are also lowered due to the action of all the external forces, suppose like water, wind. So that's why these mountains, old fold mountains, they don't have much height, they don't have so much peaks as the young fold mountains have. Okay, these are the things. Now another extra information I am giving is the Himalayas are home to some of the highest mountain peaks. You know that very well. Kanchenjunga, Mount Everest, alright, K2 we have. So they have been formed due to the folding of the earth crust. Okay, and in fact you will be surprising to know that some mountains of the Himalayas are still rising. So these are all called the fold mountains. Now next we have, that is the block mountains. Yes, what are these block mountains? Now the block mountains are also a result of internal forces. Like they are formed when large areas or blocks of rocks get displaced vertically due to the forces of tension. Now these fractures are called faults. You can see the picture here. These fractures are called faults. Now when two faults are formed alongside each other, large areas get displaced vertically along the two fault lines. Okay. Now the land between the fault lines either subsidize or rises. So one gets subsidized, नीचे चला जाता है, one rises. Alright. Now the blocks that gives mountains a flat top and the steep slopes. Okay. These blocks, one that gives flat tops and steep slopes. Now the uplifted part, as you can see, the uplifted part of the land, it's called the horst or the block mountain. Now if we see, for example, like examples of block mountains are, we have, that is the Satpura range in India, we have the Black Forest in Germany, Vosges in France and Sierra Nevada in the USA. So all these are the examples of the block mountains. Now the subsidized part, जो नीचे चला जाता है, this is called the graben or the rift valley. This is called the graben or the rift valley. Now if you see, like some rivers flow through the rift valley, like the Narmada and Tapti we have in India, and the Nile we have in Africa. They flow through these rift valleys. Okay, so next we have, that is the volcanic mountains. Now what is this volcanic mountains? Now we all know the interior of the earth is very hot, isn't it? Now the rocks melt to form molten magma, and when the temperature and pressure are very high inside the earth, magma, ash and gases, these are all pushed towards the surface and they erupt in the form of volcanoes. Alright, now the magma, what is this magma? Magma is basically the hot molten material that is found inside the earth. Okay, now this magma, when reaches the surface of the earth, it's called lava. Alright, this magma, when hardens on the earth's surface, this forms these cone-shaped mountains. Alright, this form these cone-shaped mountains. Now if we see, so for examples of volcanic mountains include Mount Fuji in Japan, Mount Mauna Loa in Hawaii. So all these are the examples of what? Volcanic mountains. Now sometimes what happens, the magma cannot come out onto the surface. So the magma starts accumulating below the surface and begins to cool off. Now these forces the rocks above the magma to bulge out, forming dome-shaped mountains. Now if you see the pictures below, so these are the dome-shaped mountains. Alright. Now for example, if you see Mount St. Helena in the USA, it is an example of the dome-shaped mountain. Alright. These are the things. Next we have, that is residual mountains. Now these mountains are made of different types of rocks actually. Now some of these rocks may be hard or some of these are soft in nature. Alright, now what happens is the rate of erosion of these two types of rock varies. Now the erosional agents, suppose like rivers, glaciers and wind, they erode the soft rock. They erode the soft rocks easily in comparison to the hard rocks. Now, what happens once the soft rocks get eroded and the hard rocks remain standing as highlands or hills? These are called the residual, or you can also term it as erosional mountains. Okay, so therefore they are the remains of the already existing mountains, basically you can call. Alright, so they are the remains of the already existing mountains. So the soft rocks, they all those flowed away and the hard ones stayed back. That's it. Okay. Now if you see for examples, we have like Aravalli range in India and we have the mountain ranges of Norway also. Okay. So these are the examples of residual mountains. Now as we have discussed about these different types of mountains, like we know this how mountains are very useful to us. Okay, so what are the usefulness of mountains? Let's see. First thing, they act as a natural barrier against cold and hot winds. Yes, they act as a border, they act as a barrier. It prevents the cold and hot winds. Now, they help in orographic type of rainfall. Now, what is this orographic type of rainfall? What is this orographic rainfall means? Now, orographic rainfall, basically it's a type of rainfall caused by mountains that force moist air to rise above. Alright, it's a type of rainfall that is caused by mountains that force the moist air, the wet air to rise above. Alright. Now, along with all this, the mountain glaciers are a source of many perennial rivers. Yes, as we know, Ganga comes from the Gangotri glacier, Yamuna comes from the Yamunotri glacier. So all these glaciers are a source of many perennial rivers. Now the forest found in the mountain slopes, they provide timber and rich pastures. Yes, they provide a large number of timber and also pastures. Okay. Now we all know forests are a rich storehouse of minerals. So the forests which are in abundance in the mountains slopes and all, they are a rich storehouse of minerals also. Now many hydroelectric projects are set upon the mountain slopes. So these things are also there. Favorable climate conditions make mountains areas a good tourist spot. So we all visit whenever we get time. So we all visit different kinds of mountainous areas, isn't it? So it provide a good tourist spot also. Okay. Now, mountain rocks, these are used as a good building material in the mountainous areas wherever the buildings are made. So these mountainous rocks used as a building material. And along with all this, a variety of fauna and flora is found in the mountain. Yes, different kinds of plants and animals, these are all found. These mountains are a home of different kinds of flora and fauna. So all these are the important usefulness of the mountains. So that's all we have in this session. I hope you have liked it, and in the next session we will discuss about plateaus and plains. Until the next time, bye bye.